Before ballots were cast and flags were raised, there was a deeper fight, unwritten in constitutions and unheard in legislative halls. This is the story of Liberia's indigenous people, not the settlers, not the presidents, but the farmers, chiefs, mothers, and warriors who lived, resisted, and preserved Liberia long before and long after 1847. They were not included in the first Declaration of Independence. They were taxed but not represented, silenced but never surrendered. This is their story. Long before the arrival of ships from the American Colonization Society, the land that would become Liberia was home to over a dozen distinct ethnic groups. The Pele, Bassa, Lorma, Kru, Gio, Grebo, Vai, Mandingo, and others lived in structured societies. They governed through councils of elders, respected chiefs, and secret societies like the Poro and Sande that maintained order, education, and justice. Trade flourished across rivers and borders. Rice, palm oil, iron, and cola nuts were bartered across what is now Liberia, Guinea, and Côte d'Ivoire. Languages, drums, and oral traditions carried stories of ancestors and laws that dated back generations. They were not uncivilized, they were simply uncolonized. When the Americo-Liberians arrived in 1820, they came with their own vision of freedom. But this freedom did not include the people they met. The settlers brought with them Western institutions, Christian missions, and laws modeled after the United States. Treaties were signed, often under coercion or misunderstanding, ceding land and authority to the settlers. By 1847, when Liberia declared independence, the Constitution explicitly favored settler governance. Indigenous Liberians were considered subjects, not citizens. They could not vote, attend settler schools, or hold political office. Traditional leaders were forced to submit to settler-appointed district commissioners. Shrines were destroyed. Indigenous religion was labeled witchcraft. The people of the interior were taxed, conscripted for forced labor, and in many cases, punished for resisting. Resistance came in many forms. Chief Gabafla of the Pele refused to submit his village to unfair taxes and forced labor. He was captured and exiled, but remembered as a martyr for justice. Chief Suakoko of Bong County, one of the most powerful female chiefs, balanced diplomacy and strength. She secured education for her people on her terms and held ground against settler pressure. The crew of Grand Cess resisted settler rule for decades, refusing to be taxed or absorbed into coastal control. Their naval skills and fierce independence earned them both respect and suspicion. The Poro and Sande societies continued to educate and train young men and women in indigenous law, morality, and survival, even when outlawed. Cultural resistance became a weapon. Drums carried coded messages. Folk tales mocked settler arrogance. Ceremonies preserved identity. By the early 20th century, international pressure began to mount against Liberia for its treatment of the interior population. In response, the government established the native administration system, which allowed chiefs limited authority under settler supervision. While it seemed like progress, it was largely a method to extend control while appearing inclusive. Paramount chiefs were selected not always by communities, but by government preference. They collected taxes, enforced settler law, and had limited power to appeal or legislate. Still, many use this platform to protect their people quietly. With the election of President William V. S. Tubman in 1944 came the unification policy. Tubman, though an Americo-Liberian, believed Liberia could not survive as two nations. He introduced infrastructure to the interior, allowed for limited representation of native leaders, and, in 1964, granted full voting rights to indigenous Liberians. That same year, for the first time, native leaders like Chief Tamba Taylor, Madam Ellen Sandamani, and Chief Blamo Nelson entered national legislature. Their presence marked a shift from silence to voice, from subject to citizen. Though full inclusion came late, the endurance of Liberia's indigenous people shaped the soul of the nation. The oral traditions preserved memory and identity. The chiefdoms and secret societies safeguarded justice and social order. The resistance movements laid the groundwork for citizenship and equality. Today, every vote cast, every traditional leader elected, and every indigenous language taught in schools is a testimony to that struggle. This was not just the story of injustice, it is the story of preservation. The Liberian nation was not only built by settlers, it was held together by the strength of its native people. Next episode, Mothers of the Land, the role of indigenous women in Liberia's survival. Be sure to subscribe and share your thoughts. What indigenous story do you want us to tell next? This is Liberia. This is their voice.